On a quiet evening in 2001, the peaceful neighborhood of Marling Way was shattered by the sound of a heated argument coming from one family's home. Neighbors would later describe it as nothing out of the ordinary, until the frantic knock on a door changed everything. Standing there was a terrified young girl, tears streaming down her face, pleading for help, her chilling words leaving the neighbors frozen in fear. "Daddy banged my head on the wooden floor. My daddy is hitting my mummy. Please call the police. I don't want Daddy to kill Mummy." Police arrived, and what was about to be uncovered would unveil an unimaginable horror that would send shockwaves through the entire community. This is the heartbreaking case of the Bluestone family. "36-year-old Carl Bluestone seemed like the picture of normality. He had a loving wife, 31-year-old Jill Bluestone, and together they were raising 4 young children: 7-year-old Jack, 6-year-old Jessica, 3-year-old Henry, and 18-month-old Chandler. Married for 7 years, the Bluestones lived in a well-kept home in Gravesend and were highly regarded within their community. Friends and neighbors described the family as happy and thriving, with a former caregiver for the children expressing shock, saying she never imagined that what eventually unfolded could ever happen. To outsiders, they appeared to have an ideal life, with 2 successful parents and 4 wonderful kids. Carl had been serving as a police constable, or a PC, and had been with Kent Police since 1987. He was well liked among his colleagues, who described him as cheerful, while his superiors praised his dedication and enthusiasm. Carl was part of a specialized unit focused on tackling rural crime, known as Kent's Police Rural Tactical Support Team, and was regarded as an excellent officer. Jill, on the other hand, had built a successful career with Basildon Council's Policy and Performance Unit. Her career began in the council's finance department in 1993, and after a short break, she transitioned to the Policy and Performance Unit in 1998, eventually working her way up to a managerial role. The Bluestones appeared to have an ideal life, and from the outside, they seemed like the perfect family. Even their car, with a personalized number plate reading J111BLU, stood as a proud symbol of their life together, parked outside their home on Marling Way. But behind the polished facade of their lovely home, life told a very different story, one far less glamorous than it appeared to those on the outside, especially for Jill. Some have speculated that Jill's professional success may have been a source of tension for her husband, as he had yet to receive a promotion and earned way less than her high salary. Despite the praise Carl's colleagues gave him, he was reportedly very controlling at home. Over time, 4 separate incidents of domestic violence involving Carl and his wife Jill were reported to Kent County Constabulary and officially documented. 2 of these cases were forwarded to the Crown Prosecution Service, but no further action was taken in any of them. Alarmingly, the first reported incident occurred just weeks after their wedding, when Carl assaulted Jill, who was 5 months pregnant at the time. Jill chose not to pursue the matter further and decided against pressing charges. By dropping the complaint, Carl leaned on his exemplary record as a police officer to protect his reputation, continuing to present himself as the likable colleague within the force. In the second reported incident, which was also dismissed, Carl allegedly threatened Jill with a meat cleaver. The third report detailed him smashing the window of a car Jill was trying to escape in and striking one of the children with an object he had thrown across the room. This time, though, Carl was arrested and placed in a police vehicle. This incident had taken place in June 1999. For reasons not fully explained, however, he consumed a handful of tablets while in the back of the car and was taken to the hospital instead of being booked into custody. After having his stomach pumped, he was released due to what was claimed to be a lack of sufficient evidence. The fourth and final incident occurred in June 2001, just 2 months before he followed through on the threats he had made to her. Police were called to the Bluestone home after Carl had strangled Jill to the point where she lost consciousness. When officers arrived, Jill explained that just before the attack, she had told her husband she wanted a divorce. Later, she confided in a friend that Carl had made a chilling statement to her. "Divorce isn't an option. Death is the only way out." On 25 August 2001, Jill made it clear to Carl that she was moving to Basildon to be closer to her work, taking the children with her and putting their house up for sale. Over the years, Carl had frequently accused Jill of having affairs, which was also his immediate reaction when he learned she wanted to leave. However, it was well known at the police station that Carl himself had been involved in multiple affairs, one of which was with a female colleague whom Jill had even confronted over the phone. Jill confided in her sister-in-law, Caroline Skerry, the wife of Carl's brother Peter Skerry, revealing that she had discovered her husband's infidelity, which had led her to start an affair with one of her own colleagues. On 27 August 2001, Jill called Caroline again, expressing concern that her husband had lost control. She also suspected Carl was secretly recording her private conversations, both at home and in the car. Carl had even yelled at Jill, "I heard about you today." After this outburst, it was reported that Carl went to a local building supply store and bought a long length of strong rope. When the shop assistant asked about the purchase, Carl explained he needed it to move heavy furniture. After finishing his shift on the 28th of August 2001, Carl went to a nearby pub for a drink with his colleagues, then stopped at the store to pick up groceries. When he returned to his quiet neighborhood, Carl had a brief conversation with a neighbor before saying goodnight and going into his house. After watching an episode of the well-known police drama, The Bill, chaos erupted in the Bluestone home. Carl became violent, attacking his 4 children and his wife, Jill. Neighbors recalled hearing an argument coming from next door, followed by the sound of shouting. Shortly after, the Bluestone's 6-year-old daughter, Jessica, appeared at a neighbor's door, crying and panicked. The neighbors were horrified when Jessica said, "Daddy banged my head on the wooden floor. My daddy is hitting my mummy. Please call the police. I don't want daddy to kill mummy." Around 10 p.m., police arrived at the Bluestone residence and were met with a horrifying sight. The detective chief inspector entered the house to find Jill Bluestone lying lifeless on the kitchen floor, brutally murdered. She had suffered 13 hammer blows to the back of her head, along with a neck injury caused by the claw end of the hammer that was found nearby, covered in blood. Jill's 3-year-old son, Henry, was discovered at the bottom of the hallway stairs, still in his pajamas, with 10 hammer wounds to his head. The coroner would later confirm that Henry had tried to defend himself, as evidenced by the injuries to his hands. Meanwhile, 18-month-old Chandler was found in his cot, with 6 blows to his forehead. Though he was rushed to the hospital, the injuries proved too severe, and baby Chandler sadly passed away at Darrant Valley Hospital in Dartford. The oldest of Jill's children, 7-year-old Jack Bluestone, was found by the police, injured but still alive. He was curled up in a fetal position on the bottom bunk of his bed. Officers quickly brought him together with his younger sister, 6-year-old Jessica, who had bravely run to a neighbor's house during the attack, screaming for help. Jessica was in a state of extreme distress, repeatedly telling paramedics, "I cannot get mummy out of my mind," with blood coming from her neck and a hammer lodged in her head. The children were rushed to the hospital with Jack in critical condition. Meanwhile, neighbors informed the police that they had heard a noise coming from the garage. When detectives entered with flashlights, they found Carl Bluestone, Jill's husband and the children's father, hanging inside, which was clear to everyone that he had taken his own life. Because Carl Bluestone took his own life, he never stood trial for his actions. However, an inquest was held, which sparked both local and national discussions on domestic violence and raised concerns about the legal system, particularly regarding whether the horrific events could have been prevented. The court issued a statement which read that the 4 incidents of domestic violence which involved Carl Bluestone had been reported to Kent County Constabulary and were all recorded, with Jill Bluestone being the alleged victim in each case. 2 of these incidents were referred to the Crown Prosecution Service, but no further action had been taken and no disciplinary measures had been pursued regarding any of the incidents. Despite Jill reporting the abuse to the police 4 times, those who knew the family were shocked and confused, as there had been no signs that anything was wrong behind closed doors, so nobody could have predicted such an outcome. A forensic psychologist suggested that Carl may have seen the divorce as a personal failure, or a reflection of his inability to provide for his family, which might have triggered the tragic events that followed. During the inquest, the court also heard statements from 6-year-old Jessica, which she had given to the police. She explained that her brother had come downstairs, and she told him to go back up, saying, "Mummy told me to go next door and get the police. Her head was bleeding, and it was all in her hair. Daddy hit Mummy in the head and neck, and that's why Mummy and Daddy won't wake up." As detectives worked to understand what had driven their colleague to carry out such a horrific act against his own family, domestic violence advocacy groups condemned Kent police for overlooking the abuse that had been happening behind closed doors. A neighbor reported seeing Jill flee the house during a previous incident, and Carl Bluestone faced no consequences after being arrested for hitting one of his children with an object. Worse still, Carl had never received any counseling. Teresa McKay, speaking on behalf of the domestic violence campaign groups, said that if he had received some form of counseling, this might not have happened, and it would have been better for him and, of course, the family if Kent police had taken action. Jill and her children were failed by numerous people who could have helped them escape from this monster. She should have been given protection and moved to a safe place to escape the dangerous situation. Carl Bluestone was a cruel man who couldn't accept that he was losing his family. Rather than letting them go, he chose to end their lives in the most brutal way. It is heartbreaking to think about how the survivors experienced such horrific violence at such a young age, watching their father harm their mother and siblings, taking their lives in the process. This is something that must have left them with lasting scars. It is sad and unfortunate what all the victims faced against this monster. As we reflect on this heart-wrenching tale, our thoughts are with the victims whose lives were tragically cut short and the loved ones they left behind. If you found this video compelling, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel and check out our other videos. Thank you for watching.